It's a pleasure to stand before you today and be able to present to you. I know as I look back to my personal life and my days as a high school student, there was an accounting instructor by the name of Mrs. Clune. This was back at Madison La Follette. And Mrs. Clune was pretty instrumental in my life in terms of fostering an interest in accounting for me. I had her for 2 years, and she sort of led me on a path that's part of the reason why I'm here today. So all of you have that potential in what you do with your students, so it's great to be before you today. When Mary reached out to me, I guess it was a couple months ago maybe, she asked that I present and maybe give you a flavor for what accounting life is like at Spectrum Brands in a manufacturing environment. So I'll attempt to do that today. And I think the best way to do that would be to sort of take you through what Spectrum Brands is and how we're organized, and then maybe tell you a little bit about the finance and accounting structure there. I will also give you a one-page recap on my career. And then most importantly, I think I'll give you hopefully some real-life examples of what people do in our company within the accounting and finance areas. And I hope they're exciting. I hope they're something that you can relate to. And then I'll try to close it up with a one-pager on maybe some recommendations that I see for accounting teachers and how you can make things relevant for your students. So without further ado, I'll tell you a little bit about Spectrum Brands. Who is Spectrum Brands? We're a company that has over $4 billion in revenues. We are sort of a conglomerate of a bunch of different companies. We have EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation and amortization of about $700 million. We've got 12,000 employees across 55 different countries. We're truly a global company. We're listed and traded under the New York Stock Exchange under the SPB symbol. And our current enterprise value is about $8 billion. So our stock price has had a nice run over the last 52 weeks. We're up to $90 roughly. We are headquartered in Middleton, Wisconsin. We were previously headquartered in Madison. We moved to a brand new building about a year ago. So it's nice to be in a brand new facility. We had been in the previous one for about 35 years or so. And we have brand names that are over 100 years old, and you'll recognize many of them. And our products are sold throughout the world. We're sold and distributed in 140 countries, and we have retailers that have storefronts that represent our products in over 1 million stores. So I would guess that when you heard Spectrum Brands, you probably didn't recognize who that is or what that is. But now when you look at the different brand names that are listed up on the board there, I would venture to guess that each and every one of you have one of our products in your household. We range from Railvac and Varta batteries to Remington hair dryers, curling irons, shavers, to Tetra fish food, to Dingo dog bones, to Cutter mosquito spray, to Baldwin and Weiser door locks, to Black & Decker toaster ovens and mixers and irons. So there's a lot of different products there, a lot of different brand names, many things that are over 100 years old, as I mentioned before. So, Spectrum by itself, that name sounds pretty generic, but when you look at the brand names, it's a little bit different. So if you look at our vision and who we are and what we want to be, our big thing is about being a superior value to our consumers and to our retailers. And we try to do that for products that typically aren't number one brands, but number two brands, and offer a value to the consumer. And ultimately, we're here to service our shareholders, and so we're trying to create value through EBITDA growth and allowing our free cash flow to reduce debt. So if you look at how we're set up from an organization standpoint, we have 4 operating units. So first unit is what we call GBA, Global Batteries and Appliances. It's about a $2 billion revenue piece of business, and it's our largest segment. And then the other ones are Global Pet, Home and Garden, and hardware home improvement. So we have separate, distinct operating units across those 4 segments. If you would have invested about a year ago, I think you would have done pretty good in your portfolio. So hopefully we can continue that trend. But as you look at each of the business units, you'll get a flavor for how many acquisitions have been involved. So on the appliances business, it was a company called Applica, and then they went and acquired George Foreman Grills, and they got the Black & Decker name to put on toaster ovens, and a company by the name of Russell Hobbs, and it Favorware, and so you can get a flavor for how many things have been tucked in over the years. The pet business is, I mentioned, it's very fragmented, and you can see the number of acquisitions we've done over the years, and we'll continue to do that. And then the hardware home improvement business, it's very much the same thing. That was acquired about a year ago from Stanley Black & Decker, and so it's brands that you probably have heard of: Baldwin, Weiser, National Hardware, etc., Kwikset. So related to batteries, I'll sort of turn the focus now to the division that I'm most familiar with and the one that I work on the most. When you look at batteries, it's really batteries and flashlights. And there's many different kinds of batteries that we sell, ranging from alkaline to zinc carbon to rechargeable to portable power packs. We've got hearing aid batteries, specialty batteries, we've got flashlights, we've got lanterns, we've got lantern batteries. So these products, by and large, most of them are manufactured through our own manufacturing network. We manufacture about 70% of our goods in this division. Flashlights tend to be sourced from the Far East, so we do sourcing from other companies, but by and large, we build our own stuff. And so we've got a manufacturing network across the globe that consists of, we've got 2 alkaline facilities, one in Fenimore, Wisconsin, and one in Germany. We've got 2 hearing aid manufacturing centers, one in Portage, Wisconsin, and one in the UK. And then we have 2 zinc carbon facilities down in Latin America, one in Brazil, one in Guatemala. We have a distribution center in Dixon, Illinois, that services all North America, and we have a big one in Elvagen, Germany, that services most of Europe. And then we have what we call 3PLs, third-party logistics distribution centers throughout countries in Latin America, Asia, etc. I can tell you I've been to all of our locations. I've traveled to all of them, and there's very different customs in each country. There's very different levels of demographics in each country. But prior to working at Spectrum Brands, I think back to when I grew up. I don't think I left Wisconsin. So it's been quite the adventure along the way. So I think that maybe gives you a good overview of the company, which will help you understand how we're organized from a finance standpoint, finance and accounting standpoint, and that will help dovetail into some of the examples I'll take you through. So the way our business units are first and foremost in our organization, they tend to drive the ship. And so if you look at that lower box in the left-hand corner, you just learned about all the different business units. We have a structure around each of those. But then we also have what I'll call corporate, shared service, and geographic execution teams that help support those business units. And so as an example, it doesn't make sense to have an accounts payable department in every single business unit. Rather, we have a shared service organization that can handle those transactions across all the different business units. And you can read some of the other areas that we take a similar approach: accounts receivable, some human resource functions, business technology, etc. In the upper right-hand corner, you have more of the corporate functions. So the corporate CFO that deals with the 10Ks, 10Qs, investor relations, treasury function. You have the CEO's office that's dealing with analysts and whatnot. And then in the lower right is more of the geographic function. So even though we have the 5 business units, we've got those business units spread throughout Europe, spread throughout Latin America, spread throughout North America. And so there's some functions from a geographic standpoint that are similar. As I mentioned, I grew up in Madison, attended La Follette. I went and got a degree in accounting from Whitewater, and I went off and went into industry, but I eventually came back and earned my MBA at Madison, and I did that on a part-time basis. It was the executive program, so every other Friday and Saturday for 2 years. And I think my wife was going to kill me at the time because we had 4 kids under the age of 8 at the time. And so doing the career thing at the same time, it was a little bit daunting, but we got through it, no divorces or anything like that. So, and then I also earned my CPA and CMA when I was working too. But the way my career started out, I did the public accounting thing over in Milwaukee, and that was a great background to get going. Got introduced to a lot of different industries, got introduced to a lot of different topics. But like I said, I was a Madison guy, so I was eager to get back here. And I actually interned at Rayovac in the summer when I was in college. And so I kept in touch with those people, and they had an opportunity, and I came back here. And I tried to lay out the different positions I've had over the years and color-coded them, just so they got a feel for what areas that they fell into. So I talked about operations a lot, and that's where I started out in. So I started out in cost accounting, and I went to our Portage manufacturing facility and commuted up there for, about a year and a half, 2 years. And it was a great experience because you're sort of the lone finance guy at that facility, and you're representing the local team, but also the corporate team, and you have to make a lot of decisions on your own. So I was dealing with capital spending at that plant. It was dealing with setting standard cost at that plant. It was about 20 million cost of goods sold at the time, and so a lot of different SKUs. All of our hearing aid sales were made there. All of our watch calculator sales were made there at the time. So it was a great experience. And then once I had done the operations thing, I saw the sales and marketing side of the house, and I thought, I want to get over there. That looks pretty exciting. And so that's exactly where I went. I worked on that side of the house, and in those functions, you're dealing with sales and marketing people. So all the price proposals that come in through the sales team are handled by those people in that department. You're actually going out on sales calls and whatnot. And then I did a stint in corporate planning, and my timing was bad because when I went into that, it was that function was the whole consolidation of the annual budget. So it was a long process. It was a 5-month process, and we had just finished it, and then we went through our LBO process, and we had to do it all over again in 3 months. So there were some long hours at that time, but it was a great experience because it was getting the investor roadshow materials together before we launched into our IPO, our initial public offering. Went back into sales, and when I say sales, I wasn't selling goods directly, but was helping the sales team. It was a finance function. And at that time, that's when we did the SAP implementation, so I focused a bit on that. I then got involved with the acquisitions that we did, so the Remington acquisition, the United Industries acquisition. I led all that from a sales and marketing finance standpoint, and returned back into sales and in that sales area. And the CEO had me pick up responsibility for inside sales, for something we call sales operations, which is our merchandising and broker network. And he actually had me do creative too, which I'm a finance guy. Creative is not my thing, but really it was a lot of project management. So, and then the blue area has been more global roles. And And those roles, that's when I got involved with traveling around the globe and rationalizing our manufacturing network. And believe it or not, we got out of China because we could produce lower and better over here. So sort of opposite of what you oftentimes hear. So the point of all that was to show you that there's a lot of different ways you can go in the company. There's a lot of different experiences that you can have. And so I thought that'd be helpful for you to understand this before I go through a couple of examples with what I've done, with what my staff has done. So to understand the battery industry, you have to sort of understand the brands and the positioning and where the environment that we face. We have to present a compelling case to the retailer to get on the shelf so that the consumer has an opportunity to buy our product. And our story to the retailer is, you want to carry us, you want to sell us because you'll make more off of us. And so it sort of sets the stage for what we have to do internally. And what we do internally is really drive cost improvement. If the cost to make a battery is very competitive. What you'll see is you won't see the Rayovac brand on TV a lot. In fact, you probably never will. And the reason is we're taking that lower price and offering it in the form of higher margin to the retailer, but also a lower price for you, the consumer, to purchase a product. So that drives a lot of our accounting and finance function in terms of constantly going after cost improvement. So the people at each of our manufacturing facilities, they have a cost improvement target to hit, and it's every single year developing new projects. The finance people tend to help identify those projects. It may be buying materials from a different vendor. It may be trying to drive efficiency in terms of making the batteries go through the manufacturing line faster. It may be figuring out how we can set up our lines so that we can have less laborers involved. So it's all those things, and that's what their function is. So it's a very competitive environment. And it's something that our finance and accounting people get to evaluate on a day in and day out basis. And that's what I thought would be interesting for you guys to see from a functional standpoint, what a business analyst does. So when they're looking at a proposal that comes in, they're the ones that are gathering all that information that's listed off on the left-hand side. So what is the battery category size at the store? Where do they merchandise the product? What are their price points? Who's in there in terms of competition? What does the buyer want in terms of margin? What does he want for slotting monies or advertising monies or volume rebate monies? And does he require fixturing? Does he require merchandising support, etc.? So they take all that information and then they distill it and build it into what we call a pro forma profit and loss statement. And it's really just determining how much money we could make off the proposal. And compiling the P&L isn't the really difficult part. There's some work involved with it, but it's really evaluating it and figuring out how we can make it work from our standpoint and not disrupt our existing business. It's easy to go out and buy business and go in with a really low price and give the kitchen sink away, but we want a rate of return, and we also don't want to disrupt our existing business. And so that P&L eventually is turned into a proposal that we pitch to the account. And oftentimes our finance person will travel with the salesperson to the account to help make the pitch, because sometimes the decisions are made on the spot. And then there's an offer, counter-offer process that takes place, and we eventually draft up the contract and administer all the proper accounting associated with that, and then it turns into a customer order, invoice. The retailer often will deduct for all these things that they want. It's truing up those deductions and applying cash. So you can see all the different touch points that maybe you teach throughout the year to your students, and I always thought this function was one of the more fun functions that I did in the past, because you are right in the action. You're face to face with the customer. You're making decisions on the spot, and it's a little bit different than just the traditional debits and credits and closing the books. So pretty exciting thing to do. And here's some of the customer calls that I participated on. So it's, you know, everyday retailers that you're very familiar with, and I've been to all these locations over the years, negotiating deals. So it's a great experience. So what has accounting done for me? I think it's allowed for a nice career. I think anyone going into it has the opportunity for a nice career. I think we all have the opportunity to earn a good living through it. It's created a lot of opportunities to see and experience the world all over. So that, like I said, growing up, I didn't really leave the state of Wisconsin, and I've been to Guatemala, Brazil, Argentina, Germany, the UK, China, places I'd never dreamed I would ever go to. And so it's been great that way. I've had a chance to stay at some really nice resorts for meetings, including Palm Springs, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, and whatnot. I've also had a chance to be exposed to some well-known celebrity endorsers that we've employed. So we had Brett Favre on our product for a while. We had Michael Jordan on our product, and we had Arnold Palmer on our product. So Michael Jordan walked right through my department one day. So that was pretty neat. And we've had them at our headquarters. We've had them present at sales meetings. So it's something I would have never thought of. And then there's some nice benefits that go along. So we're a big supporter of Badger Athletics. So we have, boxes at the Kohl Center and at Camp Randall. You get to take advantage of that. We support concerts on the square. We do dinners sometimes. So I bring these up because I think it'd be helpful for you guys to talk about this with your students, where maybe they think of accounting as this backroom thing where you just close the books every single month, but it's much more than that. There's lots of opportunities out there. And then obviously there's an opportunity to work with a lot of different people, different backgrounds, great people. I obviously come from the accounting industry. My wife was in it. Just having experienced it myself, having seen my wife experience it, having seen my kids experience it, I tried to draft up some things that maybe are helpful for you guys. I have a feeling you do a lot of them already, but I would say make sure you make it fun for your students. If you think about it, students have a preconceived notion as to what accounting is. And I think, like I look at my daughter, and she did not want to take it, and she said, "That's just that boring stuff that you do, Dad. You don't, I don't want to do that." And she's taking the class right now and really enjoying it. And I think you guys got to remember that that's their first experience. So if you make it fun for them, maybe they can go on. And then I would also say, and I heard you guys talking earlier, I think you do this, think of a way to teach them other than the traditional method, through the traditional method of a textbook. I think you guys do a lot of case studies. I think you try to dovetail in different ways to teach them, but I just see it with my own kids. They're on their handhelds all the time, and it's a different world. The textbook thing is just boring in their mind. So anything you can do, like case studies, I think that would be great. And then I would say don't be afraid to open their eyes to what accounting offers up. You obviously are here today, you're learning about it. You can hopefully take this back to the classroom, but it's not just, like I said, someone that closes the books. There's a lot of different avenues that you can take. I would encourage you to invite local professionals to your classroom. I know the WICPA has a great program that way, and they can help out with that. It's really a chance for the students to get excited about the program and what it has to offer. And then I told you about Mrs. Clune, but it's very much true. She did build a great foundation for me on accounting. And what I learned there was the building block for everything else. And so you guys have a pretty important role in that. The knowledge that you distill to your students has the potential for a lifetime impact. And I think what accounting offers is there's a good sense of accomplishment. It's one of these things that I saw it with myself, I see it with my kids, where they feel like they can get it, and if they can get it, then they feel like they're successful, and it just goes on from there. And the other great thing about you guys is that most of the time, at least in Wanakee, accounting's an elective, and so you got students that in theory want to be in that class, unless they have a parent like me that tells them to go into the class, but in theory they're there on their own. And I'd say get your students involved with extracurricular activities. I think it's a nice supplement to what you're teaching. I know, again, I'm going back to 30 years now, but back when I was in high school, there was something called Business Olympics, and it was held in the Madison area. I don't know if they still have it, but it was a competition of area high school students that competed in an Olympics, and you took a test, and on the surface that doesn't sound so great, but I did it and did well in it, and it allowed me to have that sense of accomplishment where, like, geez, I'm pretty good at this stuff. Maybe I should go into it. So if you can do that for your students, I think that's a great opportunity. And I think there's all sorts of opportunities. I look at my kids, FBLA, they were active in that. Club positions where they can maybe be treasurer or whatnot. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go with it. So I wanted to make sure I saved some time for questions. That was the last page I had. Do you guys have any questions? That's a good question. We do internships. We tend to lean on UW-Madison because they're local, and the value with that is that we get an intern that can be with us year-round. And so right now within our battery department in the sales and marketing area, we have one intern, and that person works, scaled back hours, call it 10 to 15 during the school year, and then full-time during the summer. And we've had a history of hiring those people full-time when they graduate. The person that we just hired full-time about 9 months ago was a former intern. And we've had other interns throughout the company. That's just my department, but we've had them in tax, we've had them in corporate accounting, we've had them in other business units. We do a lot of internships in sales and marketing, where they'll help with low-level grassroots trade marketing type things. So we've had a history of using interns. You guys got to understand that you got to work your way up, and it's going to take time, and you're going to get frustrated along the way because there's going to be things that you apply for or you thought you should get promoted to, and someone else got it, and you just have to have patience, and it's all about what you deliver at the end of the day. And so if you're the guy that keeps on taking more and more, and people see that over time, and you'll eventually get recognized for it. I mean, our current CEO, there was a reason he kept giving me inside sales and creative and things like that, and I deliver and get it done. And so that'd be my advice to them, is that have the right expectations. You're not going to jump into a six-figure job. It doesn't work that way. So I write a lot. I put a lot of presentations together. I do our board decks, and I'm on the phone a lot, talking to a lot of different people around the world. So I would say any interpersonal skill development that they can do, whether it be written, whether it be verbal, whether it be formal presentations, is going to be beneficial, not only in accounting, but in any career that they pursue. I mean, you saw, I've gone out on account calls to customers, presenting things. So you have to be able to interact with people of all different backgrounds. And so I just think that's sort of a point of entry nowadays, where it's just expected that you can do all those things. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.